All right. So, our theme for this year, and we do this together as the Centers for Spiritual Living because we're really looking for that synergy across the nation, maybe even across the world, that brings a new consciousness into the collective consciousness. And so, the theme for this year is Living Everyday Wonder. And this month, the theme is nature. And you can see this is the Science of Mind magazine. And of course, it is also about nature. So it's following the themes each month. And there's wonderful articles and things. And I'm going to share one with you. There's a quote from Albert Einstein that says, "Look deep into nature, then you will understand everything better." Einstein said that. Now, I'm going to start out with a poem that is a favorite of mine because the talk today title is The Water of Life. The Water of Life. And there's a poem by Erica Jong called This Element. Looking for a place where we could still the inner dialogue, the dialogue of futures and regrets, of pasts that are not past enough and futures that may never come to pass. We found this boat, this white hull amid an azure sibilance of sea, this refuge amid the reefs, this central rocking, so like the rocking before birth. Venus was born of the waters, born to teach us about love, our only sail on the seas of our life, as death is our only anchor. If we return again and again to the sea, both in our dreams and for our love affairs, it is because this element alone understands our pasts and futures as she makes them. So what is life? Evolution tells us that all life emerged from the water. 71% of our planet is water. 80% of the world's population lives within 60 miles of an ocean, a lake, or a river. 500 million people owe their livelihood and directly to water, and 2/3 of the global economy. 2/3 of the global economy is derived from activities that involve water. Approximately 1 billion people worldwide rely primarily on water-based sources for protein. We use water for drinking, for washing, for working, for recreating, recreation, and traveling. So we use water for all of these things. Our bodies themselves are 55 to 60% water, and our blood is 90% water. Now, you may remember Jacques Cousteau, very famous underwater scientist. And he said, we forget that the water cycle and the life cycle are one. So water illustrates the circle of life. So, we think about, okay, there's clouds up there, little tiny water particles in the clouds, and then they bunch up sufficiently so that they fall to Earth. And they fall to Earth as rain, or sometimes snow, or hail, or sleet, or all kinds of things depending on the temperature. But it comes to Earth. And then it nourishes the Earth. It nourishes the plants, the animals. Everything is nourished by this. And sometimes it's cold enough so that when it comes to the earth, it will be cold and frozen. It becomes solid. So we can walk on it. We can walk on the frozen lake. We can skate on the frozen lake. We can skate on the frozen river. We can build things with it. We could build igloos and sculptures and ski slopes, all kinds of things we can build with this solid form of water. And then at some point, it's going to evaporate and return to the earth. So it goes all of these. When I took a music appreciation course at community college back in the day, one of the pieces that really resonated with me was the Moldau by Smetana. Now, the Moldau is a river in Czechoslovakia. And this piece of music replicates the beginning of the river all the way to the end of the river. So it begins with, little flutes, little rivulets of water coming down the mountain, and then moving into a stream and running over the rocks and white water. You get that from the music. It builds crescendo for the white water. And then it smooths out. And it goes by a hunting party. And it goes by a wedding. You hear this little folk tune for the wedding. And then it spreads out further and goes by villages and goes by cities. And then gradually it runs into the ocean with this huge crescendo, the waves crashing and moving into the river and all of it coming together and then the river becoming the ocean. And it's a magnificent piece. And if you are part of the Facebook group for Sierra Center members, I posted a YouTube video of an orchestra performing this piece. So if you're on there, I encourage you to listen to it because it really captures that, and it captures the inspiration that water gave to the composer. So it's a great source of inspiration. I don't know if any of you back in the day read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That was a very popular book back in the 70s. And it's all about the spiritual journey of this man who goes through all kinds of changes, but eventually, and he's, not going to follow a guru because he knows that he has to come to the spirit himself. He has to open to his own recognition and realization of that presence and power. And he does that by becoming a ferryman who ferries people across a river. And he spends every day with the river, looking at the river, working on the river, and sees all of life expressed in that river and comes to that greater realization of the oneness of all life. And becomes, own guru. And it's a magnificent story. So water, whether it's a vapor or a liquid or a solid, its essence remains the same. And that is true for us. We go through all these changes, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. We go through all these changes, and yet our essence remains the same. Our immortal selves, our soul self, is still there, regardless of anything that happened. We find the presence of water restorative. That's why we like to be close to the river and the ocean. That's why we head to the ocean or the river or, the pond or whatever, just to be close to the water. Or we get little fountains in our homes, to get that sound of water, that experience of water, because it's restorative. I used to live on the bay in Emeryville, and so I would walk around this little spit of land and of marina there in Emeryville and look at the water and see the variations of the light on water and the sparkles of the waves on the water and the birds diving into the water and the fishermen fishing on the dock, and just realizing and recognizing the power that that walk and that water had to center me, to restore me. I was commuting and working at a corporate level, and it was crazy. So, but you know, I would get home, I would take a walk, and I would see the water, and it would bring me back to myself. So it inspires awe and wonder. The philosopher Lao Tzu said, "Nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it." Look at the Grand Canyon. I mean, look what water did, carving those huge canyons. Look what frozen water did to Yosemite. I mean, who could forget the first time you come out of that tunnel and you see the valley? Everybody has to stop and take a picture. You know, it's because we've experienced that awe and that wonder that the power of water done. Water is vital part of many spiritual traditions. Of course, in the Christian church, we have baptism. In the Buddhist tradition, there are water offerings. In the Shinto tradition, I remember being at a Shinto temple in Japan. You have to wash your hands before you go in to the temple. When you go to a mosque, you have to wash your feet before you go into the temple. And there's all kinds of water-related activities that happen in the religions of the world. But some of the religions also declare that certain waters are more healing than others. So, for instance, Lourdes in the Catholic tradition is a place where people go for healing water. And of course, in the Hindu tradition, the Ganges is a sacred river supposed to heal people. So they go swimming in it. And they have huge, millions of people headed into the water for that healing. In the Kabbalah, in the Jewish mystic tradition, I found a little thing where they do a spiritual tradition of healing with a glass of water that they sip 9 times. And they have a little mantra that they say with each sip. And they turn it to the clockwise, and then they turn it counterclockwise. And there's this whole ritual around drinking a glass of water. Now, of course, what we know is it's all God. Everything is sacred. All of the water is sacred. I'm going to do a little reading from Jesse Jennings, who writes for the Science of Mind magazine. And I've loved his writing for a long time. He usually answers questions for people. But he wrote, "The expression divine nature is redundant, really, because where else could nature exist but in the divine idea manifested? On the other hand, divine is a value judgment that remains highly arguable. Divinity equals sublime perfection. And a question most of us who teach material in the field ask repeatedly is we call everything perfect when it's obvious such a mess? The short answer is that divine perfection is not an evaluation of comparative worth, but an announcement of absolute inclusion. The mess is part of the one unbroken whole. a perfect circle within which we also find love, beauty, awe, and the capacity to change our outlooks and our very lives. So the divine perfection is really inclusion. It includes everything, the mess and the order, all included. In the Bible, in the Gospel of John, Jesus says, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scriptures have said, streams of living water will flow from within him." Now, in this case, what Jesus is saying is he's talking about water as spirit. And he's talking about the fact that the water of life is within us. And so we activate that spirit of life by remembering the Christ consciousness, which is the consciousness of oneness, of realizing that we are all connected, that we are all one. So water is equivalent to spirit. And so knowing that it's sacred, it gives us a consciousness of being conscious around our water, which of course during this time of drought is very, very important. To be conscious of our use of water, to be conscious of when we're wasting water, to be conscious of how we can take this precious, precious, life-giving resource and not only take care of it in our homes and our lives, but in our communities, in our countries, and in our world. We can honor the lakes, the rivers, oceans. I'm blessed to live here, so that now I don't have to just look at the water. I can go to the South Yuba and jump into it. And the clarity of the water and the beauty of the water restores my soul. Restores my soul. So we remember that we are not separate from nature. We are a part of it. And so as we sip our water and wash our food or our pet or ourselves, bless the water. Bless the water as it blesses us. Let's take this into prayer. So we open in this moment to that recognition of the oneness of all life, and that nature expresses that oneness and that interconnection so magnificently. And so we know that we are also a magnificent incarnation of nature, and that being conscious beings, we have that wonderful opportunity to be good stewards of nature, of the water, of life, and that we take this life, this love, this peace, this harmony, this wholeness that is the nature of nature, and bring it into our consciousness in a greater way in this moment, allowing it to inform, to guide, and direct us in each and every moment towards that which is higher and better and good and holy and sacred and life-giving, so that we may each be a beneficial presence here on our beautiful blue planet. And so I give thanks for this time together, for the openings that we have made, for the insights we have gained, and for the good that is unfolding by means of us in this moment. As I release my word, knowing it is complete, knowing it is done, knowing that the law responds by corresponding to this energy and brings it into perfect manifestation. And we affirm this together as we say. And so it is.